So I'm Thierry Faultier. I'm working for Harmonic, and I'm actually also the president of Ultra HD Forum, which is a separate topic. So I won't talk about 8K or 16K today. I will only talk about how to bring OTT service with a quality of service that can approach, question mark, the broadcast experience. And now we are going to see if my video is showing up. No, yes, maybe, no, not connected. Okay, now we are going to connect. Hopefully, HDMI gods are with us. Yes, perfect, no, still not. Yes, this works. Okay, perfect. So, as I mentioned, how to scale OTT service in order to improve the quality of experience. And basically, you'll see a quick section on, so let me put my timer so that I don't get, I'm very organized, usually. Okay, so basically, introduction. Also, a quick tour on what are the technology available, and you have heard today about low latency, but I also want to mention that the content-aware encoding, very popular technology, Netflix started with it, with the per-title encoding, how this can help on the quality of experience. Then we'll move to what we call the network optimization, how to bring the complete information from the player, from the CDN, from the network, to the system that is going to deliver the content. And last but not the least, I always like to mention Netflix. Netflix is the elephant in the room. Everybody knows what Netflix is. A lot of people have a service. And if your service is not as good as Netflix, there's little chance you can survive in a competitive world. And then I will conclude. So maybe you have heard about those events. People who try to do Formula One, people who try to do the European Championship, and of course, a famous golf tournament where all those were either pay-per-view or start of a new service, and at the end of the day, you get serious damages because the consumer try once, they got disappointed, and they don't come back later. So how can we fix that problem? Well, first, I wanted to share with you that the French regulator, equivalent of the FCC, have started an investigation on what is the quality of experience of OTT service, meaning up to the level of the regulator, this quality of experience is visible, and they want to understand the bit rate, the metrics, the complaint of people, why, how, and this is very interesting. I will not translate, but it shows you that this is a topic which is not only for engineers. Regulators are also dearly interested. So, scope of this presentation, we'll look at how OTT scale. Broadcast is for us, and for me, yesterday's reference, but Netflix is today's reference. And of course, very difficult to compare broadcast with a unicast technology, so I thought Netflix would be a good example. Is there a way to have live OTT match any of those, the broadcast quality or the Netflix quality? And then this is also a presentation which will be mostly focused on delivery consumption, not on the production. All the ZXC conversation, the SRT conversation will not be addressed here. We assume the signal is coming in a way which is already with a good quality of experience, quality of service to the head. So first, I would like to give you my view of the world, and I think there are really two aspects. One is the OTT service, which is running on unmanaged network, and the other one is what we call managed ABR, which is ABR streaming over a quality of experience network like a telco or a DOCSIS network. And you see the quality of service is not the same. The gateway on one hand is managed by the operator, on the other hand it's a best effort consumer-owned. And of course the device sometimes is operator and bring your own device, although you see more and more today telcos like AT&T, for example, in the US, will bring their own set-top box in the DirecTV Now future version. So there are a lot of differences, and you can expect difference of quality of experience on the different delivery, the different way to deliver the ABR. So let's look at OTT. So you have an ABR headend, which has most of the time the content-aware encoding technology. Then there is an ABR origin server, and part of the answer to your question is yes, you can scale your delivery network by going lower and lower into the bitrate, but at the end of the day, if you have a UHD screen and you serve SD, I think you need a very, very smart scaler to show good video. Of course, the CDN is by construction a best effort network element. The gateway is, of course, a best effort because there's no way to control the traffic in the home. And then here you have either bring your own device or the operator set-top box, as in the case of AT&T. So in this type of architecture, I hope we all agree there are some serious challenges because not everything is under the control of the service provider. So let's look at the managed ABR case. You still have an ABR headend, most of the time, unfortunately, with a classical CBR, and you heard what is CBR versus VBR, origin server. Here, of course, the CDN is managed by the operator. The operator has his own CDN. The gateway is under the control of the operator. Even over Wi-Fi, you can have VLANs. And of course, the set-top box, a smart operator, will have a wired connection between the gateway and the set-top box. And if you look at this type of architecture, compared to the previous one, we have one operator who has his own content across his own network and offer the same content on his competitor's network with his set-top box. And we have measured 300% KPI differences between the two networks. And the reason is you see on this architecture a lot of point of failures. And of course, the operator wants to sell you this type of experience. So there's a huge gap between the two types of architectures. So let's check now what people do to improve the quality of experience on the encode side. So this one is showing you what are the different elements people are using for content-aware encoder. So you see started with Netflix, YouTube, who do a per title or per chunk. Harmonic has decided to take the most challenging part, which is on the live side, with frame or macro block level rate control. And then you see the two different approach from VOD or for live are using open loop VBR, in-loop psycho visual model, and machine learning. So those are the key pillars of content-aware encoding. And in terms of performance, so very important, if you are going to compete with Netflix, you'd better use the same weapons because Netflix is already all in on this per title encoding that we call content-aware encoding. And therefore, if you don't use similar techniques, you might never be able to reach the same quality of experience. So how does this work? You have basically an encoder with a very smart way to predict the quality of video. And in real time, you will see the bitrate adjusting depending on the content complexity. And here you talk about 50% bitrate saving. You talk about VBR quality, constant video quality. Of course, it's completely compliant with OTT device like iOS 11, and this can go up to UHD on HEVC. So this is something we have been working for many years, and we are quite happy today to make it available to operators who want to improve their quality of experience. So here I give you a stress test we have done, taking content. In red, this is the CBR, and in blue, the IQ, our content-aware encoding. And you see that depending on the, so you have on the left, it's a bit fuzzy. So I think it's the buffering, startup time. You have the quality profile and profile stability. And you see about 3 times less buffering because the bitrate is lower. So easier to transit on challenge network. So this was done on a 4G network, and we are basically trying to send HD down to SD resolution. And you see the impact, more HD profile, low lower number of buffering and less oscillation between two profiles. So this technology is already deployed, and you see how you can improve by just working on the compression, better quality of experience. So next slide, you have seen this morning, what was the Super Bowl ranking? I think CBS was telling us what was they were at on par with broadcast, okay? So this is 28.2 seconds, which in my books is not on par with broadcast. Broadcast is probably around 5 seconds. So this is a problem, and how do we solve this problem? So Peter this morning explained you chunk encoding, so it's very simple. Today, the classical approach, you do segment after segment, and you end up with 5, 6 segments of buffering, so you end up with a very long delay. And if you do a chunk-based encoding, you see with a microshunt of 200 milliseconds, you end up with something which is, you'll see in the numbers, very close to the broadcast delay. So why is this interesting? First, this is MPEG-based standard. Second, this runs on all CDN who are natively HTTP capable. So for us, these are the two important aspects why we believe in this technology. So here you can see out of a white paper we have published, and we were using Akamai CDN for that, all the different test conditions, on-premise, public, manage, unmanaged, what type of CDN. And you see we end up between 5.5 and 9.5 seconds, so it's pretty much aligned with your 1 to 10 seconds. But very important, it's a 6 to 9x improvement compared to what we have today in the slide you've seen with the Super Bowl numbers. So let's move a bit more to the future. So in this architecture, I'm showing you compression, packaging, CDN network, and client. So very generic architecture. Each element is providing its analytic on the client, on the network, and on the streaming side. Out of all those analytics, you can create a very smart analytic database who is going to give you a dashboard of what happens in the network. Out of this dashboard, you get a beautiful log file, and this is what I call a log file to nowhere. Because out of this, as an operation person, you cannot do anything. And the goal is, you'll see in the presentation, is what to do out of those information and how to exploit them. So basically what we decide to do is, out of this analytics database, to create network operation and policies that will go to a network optimizer system. And this network optimizer will be able to impact either on the compression side, either on the origin side with the playlist manipulation mechanism, or on the CDN edge caching, in order to provide the best profiles for the user where we see contention problems. So think about the World Cup, the final of the World Cup. What do you do if there's a problem? Well, either you let the client in a Wild West behave, good or bad, or you take measures and you say, for this amount of time or this special edge cache, I have to do specific measures. So that's the goal of this architecture. And of course, you want to do it in real time on a chunk basis, which means every second for millions of players, you are going to instruct them. Let's see how this can be done. So first, I don't know if you have looked at what people do in the mobile space, but for all the OTT providers, mobile network operators, based on the commercial deals they have with the content provider, basically they are filtering the traffic. So it's very nice because it's a collaborative approach between the OTT guys and the mobile operators. The MNO can report the congestion via API or can directly modify the traffic and limit the traffic. And of course, here I've put a bit more advanced architecture than the classical zero rating. In that case, zero rating today is the mobile operator is capping all the traffic based on the agreement with the content provider. If you want to push this architecture, you need to bring an adaptive aspect where the API will be connected to the content provider, and the content provider will limit the access of his player to the service provided by, through the mobile operator. So this is something which is a bit science fiction today, but we think the more traffic you have, the more session you will have to basically control, regulate the traffic using techniques such as the network optimization technique. So let's look at Netflix. So Netflix have their own ABR encoding. They call that per title encoding. They have, of course, an origin server where they can do the graceful degradation. They have their own managed CDN, which good quality of service, since they do not go through those interconnects. They have, of course, a best effort quality of service. And, of course, they have very optimized clients. So this is part of the strengths of Netflix. And we think this is the best OTT service out there today. So if we compare the different service today and the technology. So here you have in the middle Netflix, and we have put all the different criteria we think are important. Content-aware encoding, next generation codec, CMAF low latency, deep caching, CDN switching, traffic prioritization, client acceleration, network optimization. And you see that Netflix is pretty much advanced. And if you look at the standard OTT service, what you have today, you see most of the features are not yet there. And on the right, this is what we think is the future of streaming, where we could potentially match, even outperform Netflix for most of the categories that are impacting the quality of experience. So there's some gaps from where we are today to where we have to be in the future. So to conclude, OTT, we think, is still in infancy with regard to quality of experience, especially when we scale. It's all about scaling. If you have no scalability, you probably don't even know what you are talking about. When you have 1, 5, 10 millions of subs, then you start to see some serious problems. We think there's a big difference between managed and unmanaged networks, so we therefore believe that the service providers, the telco, and the cable operators will always be able to provide a better service than OTT classical service. Of course, you can improve quality of experience today with content-aware encoding and CMAF, and I hope I convince you that there is some good potential. But we think the network optimization is the holy grail in the sense it is able to provide much better way to control the chaos. When you have a storm of traffic, what do you do in order to control the quality of experience? Of course, we believe there is more need for industry collaboration, and this is why this is one of the topics I threw at the last meeting of the Streaming Video Alliance. I'm quite happy to have the opportunity to present it here again. And for those interested, I presented a paper on this subject at NAB, so I will be happy to share that with you. So I want to thank you for your attention. You can follow me on Twitter, and I have 2 minutes and 51 seconds for questions.
You can have as long as you want, because I'm after you, Thierry. Any questions to Thierry? It's been a lot of information today, Charles. I was looking for Charles. Mark, come on, you haven't asked a question today. What's going on?
He should have the answer to his question. So,
Here goes.
Merci bien, Thierry. So, you know, I think your presentation did answer part of my, my questions, But for example, when you said the generic architecture which you presented, when do you think that all that will come to fruition in terms of time frame, when the general OTT industry may catch up and overtake Netflix, for example?
So I think today, if you just take, for example, the client information, you can start to do things. You look at the client and you say, okay, my client has a problem. The problem of looking at all the clients, you need to have you need to be able to scale. So I don't think what you can do quick and dirty will be able to scale. I think what would be interesting, if you look at the architecture I presented, is to have some standardization of all the telemetry you get from client, CDN, and network. Once you have a standardization of all those aspects, can be API, can be whatsoever, information sharing, and in real time, so it has to be very nimble, I think we can do something. But this is an industry concern. This is not only Harmonic who is going to solve that. We decided to tackle this problem because we think it's a serious problem. But we are quite open to discuss, and of course at the drinks we can share more. This is a very complex problem in 20 minutes. I hope I at least opened some of your eyes. Netflix is your best friend to improve your quality of experience. And of course, your best enemy to steal your customers.
Great reference. Thank you very much, Thierry.